On this episode, we talk about budgets, widescreens, and counterfeit gear. All that and more on
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
EDTech episode 103, Budgets and Big Screens. Hello, AV friends, and welcome to another episode of EDTech. As usual, we have our awesome panel of amazing higher ed AV professionals. Let's start off with Ernie Bailey. Hi, Ernie.
Hi, Aaron. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And then we've got Rob Rasberry.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. And of course, Scott Tyner. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year, everybody. It's great to be back and doing this again in a new year.
Absolutely. And we've got lots of interesting stuff to talk about today. So I'm just going to jump right into it with another amazing article by Scott Tyner on rave pubs. 'Tis the season. So I'll let Scott kind of cue it up for us.
This is not always the best way to start the new year, right? It wasn't really a great way to end the year. I'm thinking a lot about budget for next year. I think we all are. And I think that personally, I'm starting to see some writing on the wall that says we've got some issues coming up in our budgets. And some of the things I mentioned here are, first of all, we've got many AV manufacturers who across the board have raised their prices 20%, right? So if you want your budget to stay the same for next year, boom, 20% has to be added to it. At the same time, we have inflation at 7%. And so if you haven't heard it yet, my assumption is you're going to be hearing from your VPs of finance saying, we need to find some ways to cut our costs. So there's a number of these things kind of colliding with each other all at the same time that I'm somewhat concerned about. And then we add on top of that, of course, all of the stuff we've added over the past 3 years in order to support COVID. And it's almost this perfect storm where I can see we're needing 20, 30% budget increases, maybe to keep our rooms going. And we're being told by our finance people, hey, can you cut your budget 5%?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it's not like the number of rooms we need to update is changing. In fact, it's getting more, or the amount needed per room is increasing. I'm also finding that the salaries for my team, my budget needs to increase. I've had a few of them come to me with offers from other schools that I've had to attempt to match or at least come close to. And I'm afraid that that's gonna not be a trend that ends. And if I want to keep having a revolving door on my department, I need to make sure that my team's getting paid.
Yeah, that's a challenge we're seeing. And right now, our organization's not offering matches. They're saying we'll find somebody else. That's what I'm being told by HR. You can find somebody else. We're not going to increase their salary.
It's actually pretty crazy because not only with the price increase, I've lost a number of people to the reverse trend where, they're going to corporate, and they're getting these fantastic offers. They obviously are okay with selling their soul to the devil. That's fine. But so, when you try to retain people like that, it's very difficult. And then also I'm finding that the talent pool out there is sort of harder to get to. So you're dealing with this personnel change and then this increase in pricing. And it's like you have to do what they always love to tell you to do, is do more with less. It's just like, nah, how?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because it's not like we have a lot of money in other areas that we can trim from either. my travel budget's already very minimal, and I'd love to increase that so that my team and I could all go to, various trade shows, or at least one, each person be able to go to one per year, or some kind of conference or training. And that seems to be the first place that they want to trim from, but it's like, it's already minimal as it is.
Yeah. And then they have you hire people who, hire some people that aren't quite advanced and we'll train them. And it's like, no, you know what? We're actually not going to train them. You train them. Yeah. It's an interesting situation that I'm curious to see is going to play out over the next 6 months. But I'm a little concerned about. Well, more than a little concerned about it.
Right, and then it makes you wonder: are they going to want us to use subpar equipment in spaces because it's cheaper? But doesn't it do the same thing? I could buy that at Best Buy. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point.
Well, my argument there is when you buy it at Best Buy, when you put it into a commercial or institutional environment, the warranty is immediately voided. And that's worked for us so far.
The price up front might be cheaper, but in the long run, it costs you more because you have to replace it sooner. Right. And it's just not meant for the kind of wear and tear that we in higher ed put it through.
Exactly. And one thing we're looking at is we're not enhancing really any rooms. We're not adding new bells and whistles. We're doing the status quo in all of our rooms. Yes, we're keeping them current, but we're keeping, same functionality even when we're putting in new technology. We're not adding new functionality. We're not investing in new gadgets and gizmos to, really make it sing, which then that affects recruiting. When you bring in potential students and they see that, you don't have what the school 3 hours down the road has, they're gonna draw your top students.
Absolutely. And especially for the schools that may not have like the football programs or the certain student life activities that, may be the big draw. You kind of have to use the technology as the draw. And if that's getting cut,
we'll just let that go down the negative trail and sweep it away.
Right? Yeah.
Start letting your higher ups know sooner than later. Start letting them know that if your budget's being cut or frankly being kept the same, that here's what I won't be able to do next year.
That's an excellent way of thinking about it too. And I recently, the budget never really was too much part of what my position was. I was just like, spend it. And we have it, right? Okay. But now that is part of my responsibility, I look back and I'm like, wait a minute, my budget has not changed in 4 years. And so I'm like, if they want to try to keep it the same or lower it, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. But that's it.
Added buildings in the past 4 years, and which means you've added rooms. It's a complex situation that's going to come to a head.
Well, another issue that Scott brought up is the supply chain issue, and if we order it now, but it doesn't come in until the next fiscal year, we've paid for it twice because we've lost the money out of this year's budget, and then it's tagged to next year's, so we don't have the money available to buy more new stuff in the following year. That's happened to me in the past, and I think there's a good chance it'll happen this year. During COVID, I did manage to get some of it carried over based on the fact that we had ordered it, before January. We had ordered it in between October and December, and it still wasn't here by the end of June. I made a big enough argument, and they allowed us to carry the money over, let it just sit there, as opposed to going back to the general budget. But they told me I can't do that again.
Oh, because you would think that since it's earmarked in a PO already, that they would kind of be like, oh, well, that's already,
Well, the thing is
earmarked.
that we should know now what the supply chain issues are, and we shouldn't be ordering things that are going to take that long to get here.
That would mean you'd never order anything, though, right, Ernie?
Exactly. Or you don't order the things that you need because they're not going to be available for 2 or 3 years. And of course, if you order it now, it doesn't get here for 2 or 3 more years. There might be something new and better out there, but you don't have something you can trade for it.
Yeah, and it's not like you could be like, oh, that stuff's not arriving, so let's spend that amount now. But what are you going to spend it on if there's nothing really available?
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Great way to start.
Yep.
On to something that's a little more entertaining, potentially. AV Magazine had an article on avinteractive.com. Front Row fuels Draper's expansion into 21:9 screens. So it sounds great. But in higher ed, do we really have a need for this? What do you guys think?
So, I mean, I guess the push for the 21:9 is to, have more up on the screen and be able to use a better workspace and things of this sort. So it's sort of a half and half kind of thing. Do we really need it? I don't know if it's necessary. Would it be nice to have? Sure, absolutely. It's something that we've sort of just been investigating, haven't really thought about it, in earnest and implementation. And I suppose until somebody, shows me the product and says, well, this is why you should go to 21:9, and this is a big, advantage, I'm not sure it's absolutely necessary, at least in my area.
Yeah, I kind of agree. We said earlier, we're not putting in new technologies, and I would write this in as new technology for us. I can see it in some of our administrative conference rooms where we might be doing Teams like that. We do not use Teams in classrooms. We generally use either Blackboard Collaborate or Zoom, or we're just doing straight up PowerPoint or web presentations that are all going to be in a 16:9 format. I don't see us getting it was a challenge to get our faculty to change from 4:3 to 16:9 images, and rebuild all their slides. I don't think we're going to get them to do it again and do a 21:9 format. And like I said, if we're not using Front Row, I'm not seeing this product offered by anyone other than Teams. So if somebody wants a 21:9 desktop display, those are easy to find. You can get those from Dell or anybody else now, and have it on your desk. But putting it in a conference room or a classroom, I don't see it happening on our campus.
What about you, Scott? You seeing any uses?
I can't actually even dream of a use. Like, we don't use Teams at all. And I'm just, until there's more of a need for it. I mean, it's funny, right? Working in higher ed, my opinion is kind of like the last thing we need is wider screens in rooms. That just blocks more of that chalkboard, doesn't it?
So absolutely.
I don't see much of a need for it, but I mean, clearly, Draper's done some industry research here and thinks that this is going to be a product that they can sell.
Right. Because I feel like probably one of the places that would potentially get more use of it would be in maybe a conference space.
Yeah.
But in a conference space, they're probably more likely to have flat screen monitors as opposed to projection anyway. Although, rewind to maybe 20 years ago, my art history department would have loved it for side-by-side slide projectors.
Right, exactly.
Like, that was pretty much like the big need for side-by-side, widescreen, at least that I know of. But currently, we just, for those schools that use Teams and Front Row, it could be nice to have in some spaces.
Yeah, I have to sort of see how Teams matures, I mean, we are a Microsoft sort of a shop when it comes, and we do use Teams. I mean, we use Teams in certain instances, not so much as video, for main teaching and that kind of thing. More it's collaboration, instant messaging, those kinds of things. But I've certainly seen Teams take a lot of strides in moving forward to sort of become the new Zoom, if you want to call it that. But it still has a bit of a ways to go. And once, it possibly gets there, then maybe, as robust as it can be, maybe we could see something being used with a 21:9. But I think it's got a ways to go. I'm not even sure if it'll absolutely ever eclipse Zoom, but it's certainly getting there. And, when you have an ecosystem that that is set for that, then you could economically see maybe we could try that.
Right. And I could see if we were seeing this from Zoom and from WebEx and any of the other conferencing tools that we see out there, if it became standardized across multiple platforms, we call our classrooms codec agnostic. Okay, I can do Zoom, Teams, WebEx, all from one platform. One hardware platform, basically a PC and a projector. As opposed to back when we used to have a Cisco codec or a Tandberg codec or a Polycom codec, or sometimes we had rooms that had multiple ones. So if you're doing a Polycom class, you use this one, or you hit a different button on your touch panel and it rerouted everything over to the Tandberg system. But we've gone away from that. We've gone away from any of the dedicated hardware devices. And I've got, we're not putting Zoom rooms in. We're not putting team rooms in. We're putting in conferencing rooms that can do any of them. And so that would preclude me from putting this in because it's only usable really by teams. And I would need something that would work with everything.
Absolutely. Like you have to stay flexible. This
Exactly.
seems like a very purpose-built situation. So you'd have to have a department or, a group of people who are like, this is what we use and we're going to use this space all the time for this. And that's so rare in higher ed because everybody wants to use everything.
Well, you also, when you put a projection screen in a room, you're looking at a 20 to 25 year installation. It's going to be there for that long. So you need something that's going to last. And, if you just recently upgraded the room, that's changing out a projection screen is the most expensive part of a renovation that you do. We very seldom change it out. We're good at even, just changing out the roller and the fabric with an Advantage series or something like that. Because, here you've got to rip out the ceiling and redo electrical, everything. And it's, once again, it's very expensive and it's for one use.
Yeah, because even if you wanted to like reuse an old motor and casing and just put up the drape that's size, it's going to then look strange because it's going to be the same height, but it's going to be like shorter and at the same width that the old screen used to be. So you have to deal with infrastructure changes and nightmare. No, thank you. So I think we're all thinking that this is more of a novelty at this point, at least for higher ed.
For right now.
Yeah. But okay. Well, then let us move on to an article by AVNation. L-Acoustics obtains prison sentences for loudspeaker counterfeiters. That is not something I had ever really thought of, even that there are companies out there, slapping a name brand name on counterfeit AV products. Have you guys ever seen anything like that?
We saw it just a few years ago. Someone was doing that with Elmo document cameras, and they were failing quickly, and then you send them back in or turn the serial number to Elmo, and they said, we didn't make that. So we didn't have any of those on our campus, but I remember several people posting about those. So I have seen it before. This is the first time I've ever seen punishment for it, and especially prison sentences. I like it because it solidifies our industry.
In this, especially these days with the supply chain being what it is, if there are companies out there that can come up with a product that, does something similar to products we want, but then they're like, they slap a Tron on the side of it. And, I could see that potentially being an issue, because it'd be like, oh, there's something, it's available, I got it. I suppose I could see this if it's going to happen, this is a time, when it could potentially happen, but I could definitely see it being very problematic.
It's definitely been a bit of an issue with the chips. I know that there's been an issue with chips being counterfeited because of the shortages. I'm with Ernie. The thing that surprised me is the punishment. I mean, let's face it, China is infamous for stealing IP and having no punishments for stealing IP. So I find it fascinating that China actually cooperated in this. I guess the other one that kind of confuses me, I mean, were these people buying these speakers like just off some random internet site? Like, how did these end up in some kind of mainstream purchasing? That's what I struggle with that as well.
That's a good point. It's like, did they fall off the back of a truck?
eBay. I mean, and I'm not even being facetious. I'm serious. It has to have been some, like you said, Aaron, somebody was having issues with supply chain and went on eBay or something and bought this.
Yeah, because I feel like our trusted resellers, like, we wouldn't have that sort of issue with. At least I would hope.
I mean, I like things, we're seeing some new manufacturers appear that we hadn't seen before, or were not really mainstream, who are stepping up and making products now that compete with those that you can't get a hold of, and they're using their own chipset or a generic chipset, but able to do the same thing, putting a little bit lower price tag or sometimes even slightly higher than the name brand, but they're shipping. And I mean, we're trying some of those now for some items that we can't get because of supply chain issues. And the manufacturer says, well, you'll get it in third quarter of 2024 or something like that. And I've got to have it now. I'm willing to try somebody else's product, get one of them anyway and bring it in here. And we found some that we've been successful with. And, are we going to go back to the known name brand? I don't know if we will or not. If we're successful with this and they're able to deliver during the crisis, but it's not a counterfeit product. It's got its own name brand, and because they're delivering, their name brand is becoming known. And I think they'll have more than one of the end of the row booths at Infocom next year,
I think that in any industry, you're going to have some unsavory elements. And I think that, especially in tech, somebody's going to try to, work an angle that isn't legal, So it's just like, you go and, they'll slap a sticker of like a Nike sticker on something that is not, or whatever you want to call it, a Sony. They'll just do anything they can to make money. And ultimately, it's like you sit there and wonder, what did you do to vet that? What did you do to screen that? Was this a different distributor? Is it, a different make? And like you said, Ernie, you're willing to go with something that is not, I'm not going to say mainstream or well-known, but you're going to vet it out first. You're going to say, okay,
I'm not going to order 30. I'm going to order
right.
1 or 2, see if they work. If they do, and then they tell me they can deliver 28 next month, I'll do it. If we tested and it worked, and we didn't have to spend, multiple hours reprogramming every system. and that's what we're finding. It's just a configuration issue. Then we're more than willing to give it a try and put them in, because then I can upgrade my rooms in the proper fiscal year. I do find interesting on these that, one of the issues they've got is safety, because, these are flying speaker arrays. And one of the issues is they're falling.
I agree. That stuck out to me as well, but that also made me laugh, which is they're actually putting enough work into these things to make them look and work like speakers, which I'm like, if you really look at to scam people and make a counterfeit, just put a box with nothing in it, and they get the box. And it's like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Right. I don't know. I'm like, there's more to this story. We need Paul Harvey to do something with this.
Yeah, I was thinking it could potentially be a safety issue if they're just kind of like slapping the things together and soldering a few parts of the board, and then people actually are plugging it in and running power through these things and signal. And I could see that being potentially dangerous too. But the fact that it seems like in these articles, like these things were working, it was just more of a
I'm thinking if I can make a working one and I can deliver it and the other guy can't, I'm going to put my own name on it and say, here. So, I don't have a temporary solution. I've got income forever now.
You could become the next big name in
exactly.
speakers or control or whatever.
I want to know what Ernie's going to name his speaker company.
Should just be EB speakers. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's another company that has kind of similar initials and sounds EB. I mean, you're counterfeiting there. You just kind of playing off the name a little. Maybe a name. They might sue you for name infringement, but
they'll be like, "Wait, it is my name. Wait a second."
Well, all right. Thank you guys so much for another awesome conversation this month. Ernie, how can people get in touch with you if they want to?
You can usually find me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And Rob, how about you?
I'm with Ernie, LinkedIn.
And Scott, where can they find you?
Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'm going to be a salesperson at evspeakers.com. I think going forward, you can find me there.
And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Smirren_off_ice. Thanks again for another awesome episode, and we'll see you next time on EdTech.